The Anthony Davis era in Dallas is over almost as quickly as it began, closing a chapter that once felt seismic and now feels transitional. Barely a year ago, the Dallas Mavericks shocked the NBA by trading Luka Dončić to the Los Angeles Lakers in a deal headlined by Davis, a 10-time All-Star and one of the league's most dominant two-way players. At the time, the move was framed as a bold recalibration. Former general manager Nico Harrison argued that Davis's defensive impact, versatility, and championship experience made him a better foundation for a title run than Doncic in the Mavericks' specific context. That vision has now been abandoned. Dallas has moved Anthony Davis, shedding the remaining $120 million on his contract and acquiring late first round picks in return. In doing so, the Mavericks have fully pivoted away from the idea that Davis was the centerpiece of their future. Instead, the franchise has reoriented itself around a new timeline, one centered on number one overall pick Cooper Flagg and long term flexibility rather than veteran star power. This trade isn't just about Anthony Davis, it's about an organization admitting that its direction has changed. When Davis arrived in Dallas, expectations were immediate. He was supposed to anchor the defense, elevate the roster, and validate the controversial decision to move on from Doncic. But the reality was more complicated. Injuries, fit questions, and the challenge of building around a veteran big man with a massive contract limited Dallas's ability to fully reshape the roster. As the months passed, it became clear that the Mavericks were straddling two timelines, one foot in win now mode, one foot in a future that didn't quite align with Davis's age, health history, or contract length. The arrival of Cooper Flagg forced clarity. Drafting Flagg with the top pick accelerated a philosophical shift. Rather than building around an established star in his 30s, Dallas chose to commit to youth development and financial maneuverability. Keeping Davis would have tied up cap space and limited options at the exact moment the franchise wanted flexibility. Moving him was not a failure of talent. It was a recalibration of priorities. By shedding Davis's contract, Dallas opens room to construct a roster that grows alongside Flagg instead of asking him to fit into a pre-existing hierarchy. The late first round picks acquired in the deal may not be glamorous, but they fit the new strategy. Cost controlled assets, developmental upside, optionality. This is Dallas choosing patience over pressure. For the Mavericks, the next question is how to support Flagg without rushing the process. That means surrounding him with younger players who can develop together, not veterans whose timelines are misaligned. It also means resisting the urge to immediately chase the next star, a temptation that has defined many franchises that land a generational prospect. The lesson of the last year is clear. Direction matters more than headlines. On the other side of this deal sits Washington, a franchise that continues to embrace bold, aggressive rebuilding moves. The Wizards acquire Anthony Davis and pair him with another high profile newcomer, Trae Young, creating one of the most unconventional cores in the league. It's a fascinating combination, a dominant defensive big and an elite offensive engine, experience alongside youth, proven star power next to developing talent. For Washington, this move signals ambition. The Wizards are not content to drift through another slow rebuild. By adding Davis, they inject legitimacy into their timeline. They now have a player who can anchor a defense, attract attention, and set standards for professionalism and preparation. Pairing Davis with Trae Young is especially intriguing. Young brings creativity, scoring, and playmaking. Davis brings structure, rim protection, and versatility. On paper, the fit makes sense. Young's defensive limitations can be masked by Davis's presence. Davis benefits from a guard capable of consistently finding him in advantageous positions. The question is health and cohesion. Anthony Davis has always been dominant when available. The challenge has been availability. Washington will need to manage his workload carefully, especially as they integrate younger players like Kyshawn George and Alex Sarr, two recent first round picks who represent the future of the franchise. For the Wizards, this isn't about immediate contention, it's about credibility and momentum. Adding Davis accelerates the rebuild without abandoning it. Young players get to develop alongside an established star. The fan base gets a reason to engage. The organization sends a message that it is no longer content to be passive, but this approach carries risk. If Davis struggles with injuries or if the timeline between veterans and prospects doesn't align, Washington could find itself back in the middle ground they are trying to escape. The success of this move depends on patience, health, and a clear understanding of roles. For Dallas, the path forward is clearer, if less glamorous. The Mavericks are now firmly in the Cooper Flag era. Every decision will be evaluated through that lens. Cap space, draft capital, development, culture. The front office is betting that flexibility and youth will yield a more sustainable future than trying to force contention with mismatched timelines. The speed with which the Anthony Davis era ended underscores how quickly plans can change in the modern NBA. A year ago, Dallas was defending one of the most controversial trades in league history. Today, they are undoing its central pillar. That doesn't mean the original logic was flawed, it means circumstances evolved. For Washington, this trade represents optimism. For Dallas, it represents restraint. Two franchises moving in opposite directions, each believing this move brings them closer to where they want to be. The tentacles of this trade will be felt for years. How Cooper Flagg develops will define Dallas's choice. How Anthony Davis holds up will define Washington's gamble. In the NBA, there are no static plans, only decisions made in moments of clarity and the willingness to change when clarity shifts. The Anthony Davis era in Dallas is over. What comes next is something entirely different.